opinion about New Year's, I'm going to talk about New Year's. I'm going to talk about my predictions for AI in 2026 and kind of give you a sense for how we're going to approach it this year. If you stick with us, how you guys can approach it as well. And I'll use one of you guys as an example to build some stuff, but I'm going to build some things strategically within the confines of like what I suggest for this year. Okay. For those of you who don't know me, I'm an executive here at Famous Labs, and I teach the Saturday classes. And anyways, most of you guys probably already know me. So my opinion about New Year's resolutions, Terry's correct that New Year's resolution, most of the time they don't work. Who cares? But I also subscribe to the idea that use whatever you have. Because at some point, if you're doing something right now that isn't getting you to whatever goal you have, then you do at some point have to change. And you can do it in a micro habit way, and that'll eventually lead to something larger. I do agree to that. But I don't think it's wrong to use anything as an excuse. Like you can always use anything in your life as a trigger, as an excuse to change. It can just be, whatever sign from God during a prayer, or it could be New Year's, it could be Christmas, it could be anything. So if it's New Year's, cool. If it's something else, cool. Doesn't really matter. But making a commitment to yourself to starting a new routine, which will eventually lead to wherever you want, it's good. So I'll talk about kind of what I'm seeing for 2026. Okay, I'm gonna go through a general overview, and I don't know if anyone's kind of seen me go through this, but I'll use my handy dandy whiteboard. Can everyone see my screen? One in the chat if you can see it.
I've missed your whiteboard.
Yeah, so many coaches try to sell you on why willpower won't work. Yeah, willpower is definitely finite. You gotta. I want to get into a super long lesson on willpower right now. But first thing for 2026, okay, I'll just title this 2026 predictions and suggestions. Okay, so the first thing is that habits are more important than goals. Okay, the way that I approach goals is kind of like this. Like here's you, you're the little guy, and you have your, kind of stereotypical, kind of manifestation dream, and it's like way up here. Okay. Some people call it BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal, vision, vivid vision, crazy goal, whatever, that thing. Okay. The big mountaintop thing. You're trying to go there. Whatever that idea is, this is important to understand what you want. Like, I want to live in London, and I want to also be able to travel, or I want to, whatever that thing is. I want my kids to, go to this school and not have to get any debt or whatever. Your big thing. This is important to understand what this looks like. Like I'll give you an example of what mine is. My wife knows what it is. We call it the Park Hyatt. Okay. Does anyone know like the hotel chain, the Hyatt? The Park Hyatt is kind of like their Ritz-Carlton. It's like the fanciest version. And it's usually like $1,000 to $2,000 a night. And they have them all around the world. In most major cities, they have a Park Hyatt. And we like Hyatt as a chain. And so we have this vision of being able, because I'm a artist at heart, and she is too. We had this vision of like at a moment's notice being like, we saw this thing on TikTok that's happening in Sydney. We should go to Sydney and like go there for a week and see the thing, da 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 da. And we just go there and we stay at the Park Hyatt for like a month. Okay. So the idea is like living at Park Hyatts if we want to. That's our lifestyle. For other people, it might be the exact opposite, but we have this kind of concept that we like. Okay. So being able to visualize it and name it and imagine what it is important. But the most important thing is like what you do literally today. Okay. And most of the stuff in between, especially with AI, is pretty much irrelevant. Like all this middle stuff is kind of irrelevant. And the reason why it's irrelevant is because with AI and specifically, all of this is going to change. So it's basically impossible to predict the how that you're going to get there. Does that make sense? So because things are going to change, you can't really predict the future very much. So all you have to do is just focus on like, what am I going to do today? Maybe this week, but like, oh, quarterly goals or like 6-month goals. Like Terry, like when has Alex ever been like, this quarter we're gonna like? He never said that. You
Never.
know,
A week's
never.
usually too long for him.
Yeah, like a couple, like, hey, let's test this thing. Let's make a decision of whether it's working in 3 days. That's usually how it works, something like that. Okay. So these habits, this is my first premise. I'm building a case here. The habits are going to be more important because things are changing too fast. Okay. Second premise, you only have to win once. Okay. So this is like Naval Ravikant talks about this, okay? You guys haven't read the Naval Ravikant, or you haven't, that was, I think, the first book that we did on our Thursday book club, which you guys should join. And the idea is, do you guys know how like VCs work, venture capitalists? So the way that venture capitalists work is they'll invest in, let's say, 100, 200 companies a year, okay? And 95% of them lose money that goes to zero. Two or three of them, they make their money back. One of them, they get like 10x, and then one of them is like Uber. Okay. And one out of 100 pays for all of them. And that's how they make their returns. Okay. So they make a bunch of bets. These are the best investors in the world in theory. They see the best deals in the world in theory. And they're investing in the best founders with the most resources in the world in theory. And they still only win one out of 100, one out of 50. Okay. So the same thing is going to apply to you guys. The problem, this is going to kind of break your brain a little bit, is the problem with doing that is you felt a couple of years ago that that was impossible because you needed a lot of money and you need a lot of time to execute on an idea. Okay. So yeah, it's easy for a VC to invest in 100 companies in 1 year and then one of them wins and they're like, hey, I'm this genius, because they're essentially leveraging all of these other people's talents and leveraging everyone else in order to have 100 tries that are happening at the same time. Does that make sense? That's what an investor does. Like when you're investing in the index fund, like the S&P 500, and you're like, oh, these 20 companies went bankrupt. It doesn't really matter because you also got the company, you also invested in the company that 10x, right? So it kind of ends up averaging out. So you're diversifying. Well, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was true that it's very difficult to test new things quickly unless you have like a couple computer engineers on staff, and even then it might take a month or two to like try to test something. Whereas now you can test something, every week, every day, every month, whatever it may be. And so you have to kind of humble yourself in knowing I'm going to get to whatever this thing is, but I don't really know how I'm going to do it. I just know that I'm going to keep trying until I do it. Okay. And this is kind of anti-procrastination here, is that if you feel like, oh, if I try 50 companies, what are the odds that one of them is going to work? Probably pretty high. So then what you're trying to do, and this is a suggestion that I give you this year, is try to squish those 50 trials or those 10 trials or whatever into this year as short a time period as possible. Because remember, you only have to win once. Okay? You can lose, 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 lose. And if you win once, everyone thinks you're a genius and you essentially probably are going to be able to accomplish your goals. Okay? Does this make sense? And the reason for this is because execution has been commoditized. Okay? If you guys know what that means, but basically is everyone still here?
Yes, sir. Put one in the chat.
Yeah, okay, cool. It's just the chat is like totally dead. It's okay. I'm just making sure everyone's not asleep. So number one, your daily habits, your weekly habits are more important than your goals. Okay. You just need this big goal. This is what I want in my life, but you don't really know how you're going to get there. It's okay. Welcome to the club. You only have to win once, which means that you have to try a lot of times, which means that you have to humble yourself. Okay. And this is finally possible for you to be able to do this because execution has now been commoditized. What I mean by that is that with Famous and SuperCool and any other AI tool that you're using, you can execute those 50 trials this year. Does that make sense? Whereas 2 years ago, literally, you probably couldn't. I mean, you could test the idea of it. Like maybe you were good at ClickFunnels and you make kind of an ugly ClickFunnels and you make a little video and then you can run some ads to it and you can test the idea, but you couldn't really test the actual product because to produce the product required so much capital and knowledge and time and strategy and brand building and designers and all this kind of stuff. Whereas now, because the execution of it has been commoditized, it's 100 times cheaper that you actually can do that. Does that make sense? Everyone following? So if the execution has been commoditized and you can test 50 different things, what should you do? Okay. I'm going to make an argument here. That's maybe a little bit controversial. I'd be curious to see what Alex says about this, but I think it's true. Does anyone know the like Hedgehog Concept from Good to Great, where he says, what Good to Great is a book by Jim Collins. It's like one of the best-selling business books of all time. And he says every great company has to have, he's like a hedgehog is like kind of a weird animal. It only does one thing very well, but you only have to do one thing really well. And so the question is, in the world of AI, 90% of people, 95% of people, 99% of people at anything is going to be disrupted. You guys have seen all the layoffs, that are happening this year, like knowledge work. white collar work is slowly going to die. Now, that doesn't mean that the only reason why it's going to die is because the top 1% of people can do the job of like 50 people. So the extra 49 people, they're not needed anymore. Does that make sense? It's not that we don't have engineers. It's just that we will have 5 or 10 engineers instead of 100 or 200. It's not that we don't have social media team. It's that we can hire one superstar or do it ourselves versus having 30 people to like do it. Does that make sense? So the 1% are the people that are going to win. Like you have to be the best. Okay. So how do you become the best at anything? You have essentially two options. Okay. You can pick something, how to be the 1%. Pick something and do the 10,000 hours, practice, 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 deep work, blah, 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 blah. But that takes a long time. What do you guys think is another way very quickly to be the best at something? It's going to be, if anyone gets it, I'm going to be shocked, but I'm just kind of curious how you're thinking about it. Yeah, you could hire the best to do it, but that's kind of expensive. Yeah, Scott, good job. Pick something you're already the 1% at. Okay. Now, I'm going to say this. There's some of you are like, I'm not the top 1% at anything. That's not true. I'll explain why. Okay. The thing that you are the top 1% is the thing that's very uniquely you. And if you remember from the book, he says people want it. Okay. The market wants it. Okay. Like there's actually a problem to be solved. Okay. Another one is, you're kind of passionate about it. Okay. That you actually care about it. And then another one is you can be world class. Okay. So something that you're passionate about that you can be world class at and that people want. This is the tricky part. You don't actually want what people want. This is the thing that you have to try. Okay. You don't really know what people are going to want. This is where you have to be kind of humble and you have to try a million different things. But you already know what you're passionate about and you already know what you can be world class at because it's something that's unique to you. And let me give you an example. Let's say you're like a mom and you live in, Tampa, Florida or something, and you play tennis. So you for sure are top 1% in the world for, how to like the tennis world in Tampa for like middle-aged women. You're probably, top 5 in the world at people that know that thing. Does that make sense? It can be local or it can be some weird niche. Okay. And the way to think about this is just to list out a bunch of stuff that you like. Like, I like Magic the Gathering, that card game. I like tennis. I like marathon running. I like high rocks fitness training. I like books. I like nonfiction business books. I like novels. I like kind of Oscar level movies. These are things this is just me, right? I like University of Michigan sports teams, right? These are just like lists of things. If my family was to talk about Jonathon, these are like things that they would say. They're like, oh, it's Jonathon, that's what he likes, right? So and that exists for you too, right? Like Terry, likes music and he likes things with like being a dad and he, like that. Does that make sense? So the things that make you you, the concentric circles around that, you're the top 1% of the 1% of the 1% in the world in that thing. And who's like an influencer that's been talking about this for like 5 or 10 years, by the way. I'll give you a big social media guy. He talks about social media and he says, you gotta be the best way to be big on social media is to be well, Mr. Beast doesn't give it his whole thing is like, yeah, Gary Vee. He kind of teaches you how to so Gary Vee's been talking about this forever, right? He's like Gary Vee, does anyone follow Gary Vee? He's like talking about, he likes sports cards, he likes the New York Jets, he likes business, he likes social media, he likes traveling, he likes, he does like the garage flips things, collectibles, right? Like, how do we know all of that about him? It's because that's his brand. His brand is who he is. Does that make sense? So here's the fourth thing. Brand equals trust equals be you. Okay. So this is my prediction for 2026 is that because the execution is going to be commoditized on anything, because you can build something, like last Sunday, is anyone on last Sunday's call? Alex built like companies like on the call. I don't know if anyone saw that. It was insane. I watched him. He was like, look, and he was like, it's built. And, I don't know if anyone noticed this, but we are building with Famous, you have, the website, okay? And then you have the login. Did I write this somewhere already? I feel like I did somewhere. Yeah. Okay. Look. So, you need a website, then you need to collect payment, then you need to have a login, then you need to have the software, then you need to have the API calls, then you need to have a database, And then you need to have a CRM. This is basically like what you need for like any digital company. Okay? And we have the website already with Famous, payment already with Famous, login now already with Famous. The software builds with Famous. The API calls are now being added by Famous automatically. And the database, you don't even need Supabase anymore. We're still working on it, but it's pretty much done. And then we're adding an admin CRM that'll probably be done in February. So the execution of all of this, and then if you talk about marketing or videos or ads or any of that kind of stuff, SuperCool is like the fastest thing in the world for that as well. So all of the execution, because the execution is going to be so fast and so easy, the next question is, well, what should you test? If you only have to win once, which means that you should test like 50 things. If the execution of those tests has been commoditized because you can just build everything in a day basically, and a really good version of it in a week, then what is left over? What's the things that you should test? In my opinion, it should be something that you're world class at or something that you know a lot about, which means it should be you. Does this make sense? And this is funny because I remember in June when I first started using Famous, me and Alex had this long conversation about like strategically like where the company was going. And he said, by this time next year, like someone might be able to build Famous with Famous. Does that make sense? It's like because you'll be able to build anything, the only thing that's left over is really you. Like you are now the thing. Okay. And you see this with a lot of like tech CEOs. The days of these like tech CEOs and tech founders being like cloistered in a basement and not talking to anyone, they're over. Like you type in a new fancy, unicorn brand, and there'll be like 30 podcasts with the founder. Why is that? Why is everyone like going on social media and doing like, going everywhere? It's because the tool is like not as important when you're launching something. Does that make sense? Is everyone following this?
Totally, yeah.
Okay. So the next thing is I want you guys to pick your level that you're comfortable playing at. Okay. Now I'm gonna require that I do a little. I'm gonna teach you guys kind of like how AI is built. Okay. I don't know if anyone's ever explained this before, but there's basically layers on top of everything. Okay. So the bottom layer is, let's call it energy or hardware. Okay. So what's at the base here? What's the biggest company that's at the base of all of this kind of stuff? Like actually making everything run. NVIDIA. Yeah, exactly. So why did they become the biggest company in the world? Well, because they're at the base. And you could argue like why is like nuclear plants coming back in vogue? It's because we need a lot of clean energy. But anyways, so you could argue that and like literally energy at the base, but like the things that actually run is NVIDIA. Okay. So these are like chips. Okay. Then you have what's the next layer? Anyone know? Like OpenAI. Like what is that? What's the next layer? Yeah, the LLM, the models. Okay. That's like the next layer. Okay. So then on top of the model, okay, I'm going to call them meta tools. Okay. So this is like Llama, OpenAI, Gemini, Anthropic. Okay. Does that make sense, guys? Then there's meta tool. And a meta tool, what I mean by that is like a tool that can create other tools. So like Famous or SuperCool. That makes sense? Okay. Then there are actual tools. So this would be like, over here. Tool. Okay. Then there's tools. And then tools, this would be like Opus Clip or something like that. Or like ClickUp, right? It's like a tool that has a specific goal. Does that make sense, guys? Are you following that? It's like a CRM or a video editor or something like that. Is everyone following? This would be like a traditional software that you guys might be building. Like you're building a software for whatever. Okay. Then there's niche tools. Okay. So the other day what was I building the other day? Let me show it to you guys. I was building a Hyrox. You guys know I'm obsessed with Hyrox recently. So I was building like a Hyrox training thing for myself actually. And so I was building this. Okay. And it's like you do all of these things and then you log in and then it gives you like a calendar of like what you should do every single day and your progress, nutrition, meal planning. Anyway, I was building this for like myself, and then I have a friend that's really good at Hyrox. Anyway, so I was doing this. Okay. I was building this the other day. And this is like a niche tool. So like Hyrox training software. Okay. Whereas a general software would be like video editing or image creation or something like that. Okay. And then above this is like niche services. I know this got kind of messy, but are you guys following this?
Yep.
So you have NVIDIA at the very base, then you have the LLM models, then you have the meta tools, then you have tools for like general things like video editing or something like that. Then you have a niche tool for a specific audience. And then you have niche services like web development, okay? And then you have niche services for a niche. So you could be like, I do web development for landscapers in Florida, okay? And what is the main thing? If you were like, what's the main difference as you go down and up? What changes here? It's kind of a fancy capital raising term. Yeah, as you get more specific, what decreases? Yeah, as you get more specialization, how do I say this without giving it away? This is like a game show. Yeah, you get smaller audience or bigger audience. And what is that called in capital raising? Like the size of your what? Market. Yeah. So what do they call that? It's three letters. TAM. Yeah. Total addressable market. Okay. So your total addressable market, okay, is bigger at the base, okay, and it's smaller at the top. Does everyone make sense? The amount of people and the amount of money that's spent on that is bigger at the base. And then if you're doing websites for landscapers in Orlando, it's smaller total addressable market. Is everyone following that? Is everyone following? Does everyone understand? Okay. By the way, everyone here can compete at this level, the meta tool level. How can you compete at the meta tool level? If you have a huge total addressable market, how would you do this? It's like the easiest thing, actually. It's actually the easiest in terms of getting started. I'll give you a hint. Yeah, you can white label famous. So if you, I think that's Donna, that's what you meant by WL. Yeah, you can white label or be an affiliate of famous. Does that make sense? Then with famous, you can build tools, okay, that are general. You can also build niche tools, and then you can also build niche services and perform them with AI. And then you can get super niche, like local, if you want. Okay. Now, this is easier to make 20K. Okay. So if you want to make like 20K a month, the more niche, the easier. Okay. But it's basically impossible to make like 10 million. Does that make sense? Is everyone kind of following this? So this is if you want to get famous, it's difficult to make 20K, but it's way easier to make a million because once it starts to scale, it becomes this kind of crazy thing and you have a much larger market. Does that make sense? So when I say pick your level, this is what I mean. I want you guys to think kind of like what games you want to play in. And by the way, you don't have to like pick it. You could do all of the above. I want you guys to kind of think about this as like, what's a meta tool that I could create? What are tools like maybe I white label famous, but I make it for local businesses. Does that make sense? Or maybe I make a tool for, video editing, but it's, specifically for people in the Arabic speaking world, right? Or hey, I'm a dad or a mom, or, I was like I said, I really like Magic the Gathering, so I started creating. Maybe I can show you. I started creating I was kind of messing around with, where was it? Oh yeah, this. So I made like a little game where you can like learn, it's like a card game where you're like in the startup world and you're facing other startups and you have to like choose what to do with your money. I was making this the other day. And then it's like a very basic version, but you can see how it could be like a card game. Okay. And then it changes your startup and then you choose what you want to do and then you end your turn and then they go. Very basic thing, but because I like games like, like multiplayer games, I started making one for like startups. Does that make sense? So this is me. This is very Jonathan. Like I like multiplayer card games that are strategic, but I also like startups, right? So I made a game that was combining like multiplayer Magic the Gathering style rules with my ability to create software with my understanding of how to launch startups and the number of people in the world that have the ability to understand what this is very few people. Does that make sense? And so this is like a very Jonathan thing, which means that it's unique, which means that it's something that I can probably only build myself, right? And at this level, this is like a niche tool. So this would be people that are like startup founders that want to learn about how to launch your company, but also maybe it's for people that like card games. I don't know. Does that make sense? You guys are like, the idea is to pick your level, okay? In combination with yourself, okay? The next thing that I want you guys to think about is crunching time, okay? So I want you to there's a something in writing. It's called kill your darlings, okay? Anyone ever heard this? So in writing, a lot of times you'll write these like beautiful sentences or you'll write this like beautiful paragraph and you're like you're emotionally attached to it. Okay. And editing in the publishing industry, they say, well, sometimes you got to kill your darlings, meaning that some sentences or chapters or paragraphs or parts of the story, they kind of get in the way of your end goal. And you're overly obsessed with this one thing, this one part. And so what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to get in the habit, okay? This is going to be come back full circle to the habits of like what I suggest you guys actually do, okay? Is there's going to be a couple things that I want you to do like every week or every month. You can pick every day, every week, every month, every quarter. I mean, obviously the more condensed, the better. But it's going to be very important for you guys to all have a social media presence, I think, starting this year. Why? Because brand equals trust equals you, okay? So I want you guys all to go hard on social media, okay? And I want you to test a new idea, product every amount of time, whatever you want. It doesn't matter. You pick the time. You guys know your own life, okay? Every day, every week, okay? Every month, whatever. And what this is going to do is this habit will actually result in your goal. And honestly, almost anything else doesn't really matter in terms of business. Because if you say, I'm going to test a new product and a new idea every day, week, month, whatever it may be, then by default, you're going to, in the next 6 months, year, 2 years, you're going to find a winner. And not only are you going to find a winner, but you're going to get better because every time you fail, every time you mini failure, you have like a micro failure where something you go to market and something doesn't work. That's not an actual failure. All you did is you learned what didn't work and you learned maybe, some ways that you're going to do it differently in the future, which makes it more likely that in the future you're going to win. And remember, you're only trying to win one time. So I know that was like if anyone's heard my, I could have come on and been like, hey guys, so this year I recommend that you test a new idea, every week or every month. And you should really go hard on social media because you need to build a brand. Like I could have said that and then just like logged off, but I wanted to give you my kind of why. Okay. Like I wanted to build the argument, my degrees in philosophy. So I always have like premise one, premise two, premise three, premise four, premise five, So I'm kind of giving you the reasoning behind it. Okay. So premise one is your habits. The things that you do this year are more important than your big goal. Okay. Because you don't know how you're going to reach your big goal. Whatever you have in your mind is probably not right. Okay. Premise two, you only have to win once. If you fail 49 times, it's okay. You only win once. Everyone's going to think you're a genius. Okay. And more importantly, you're going to, have something that's working. Premise three, execution has now been commoditized, meaning that you can test something new every day if you want to. Because you can test something new every day, trust is more important than ever, which means that you need to build a brand. And it's okay if whatever you build is just around the things that you like. So the 5 or 6 things that you like, just build things around that, okay? And just start posting to social media. You got to get over yourself, okay? Then 5, pick your level, okay? Which level? And by the way, you can test all of these. You can test super niche or super meta. Just know that it's easier to make some money at the top, but it's easier to make a lot of money at the bottom. Okay, test all of those different things. And then at the end of the day, you're going to need to crunch time more than ever. The best way to keep up with AI is just to come on these talks and keep up with us because we're keeping up with it and we're building. So pick a time. This year, every week, I'm going to launch something new. This year, every month, I'm going to launch a new thing. This year, every 3 days, I'm going to launch something new. Okay, just pick that. That I think should be your goal for 2026. Not, I have, my gambling app that I'm going to like, yeah, test that. That's fine. I'm not saying don't test the thing that you have in your mind, but test that and then see if it works and then move on. Test 50 things, test 100 things, test 200 things. Okay. So the odds of you testing like 200 businesses, softwares, websites, services, whatever, this year and one of them not working at like $1 million, it's basically zero. Like just imagine you launched, a new business every other day. You built a website, built an MVP, you launched some ads, you posted on social media, whatever it may be. Okay. Imagine doing that every other day. So 365 days divided by 2, you did like 183. Okay. So let's say you did 183 different businesses this year. What are the odds that one of them doesn't work to like $1 million? Probably nothing. So then the question is, are you going to do that? Because you know the path. The path is just fail 182 times first. And so then you have to decide whether or not you're willing to pay that fee, that emotional fee and financial fee and time fee or whatever, if you're willing to pay that in order to succeed at whatever you want. Because, there's always a price to pay. That makes sense. And then also knowing that in the future, because you can test things, you really need a brand. So that's what I would suggest for this year.